Hello, dear Odooers. At Apex Originals, our sales team is expanding and our new sales director wants an overview of how the salespeople in our team are performing. We already provided her with a pivot table showing sales order per quarter per salesperson, but she also wants a user-friendly graph that let her see the situation at a glance. To do this, we are going to check out the available reporting in our database and insert the relevant chart into a spreadsheet. Let's get started. So, the first thing we need to do is open our sales app, then click on the reporting menu. We can access various types of sales report, and in this case, we want to see reporting by salesperson. The default view is this graph view, and if we look in the upper right corner, we can see that the two possible views are graph and pivot. For this tutorial, we'll focus on the graph view. First of all, let's figure out exactly what this chart is showing so we know if it corresponds to what we need. We can see in the search bar that the chart is showing data from the last 365 days. Let's delete that filter because we want to see all historical data. Our sales director wants to see data by quarter, so we'll click inside the search bar and group by quarter. Something that's good to know. If we were to eventually publish or insert a chart as an Odoo dashboard, which we cover in another tutorial, the user would be able to change the granularity of our chart in the dashboard itself. For example, they could choose to see data by month or week if they wanted to. Also, the chart is currently showing data for both quotations and sales orders, so let's select only sales order. Next, this purple button at the top left shows us which metric or value is being shown in the chart. Right now, the chart is showing quantity ordered, but actually we're interested in seeing the total amount. So let's click on the down arrow, then select total. Over any segment of our chart, we can see the corresponding total amount of sales order for the given period. In case you're wondering, Stephen McDonald only joined the company recently, which explains why we are only seeing data for the most recent quarter. Something we haven't touched on yet is this row of icons just above the chart. The default chart type is bar chart. But depending on the type of data we're working with, we might want to change that type of chart. There are only 3 possible chart types here, but you'll see that when we insert the chart into a spreadsheet, there will be many more chart types to choose from. You can also disable stacking or change whether the chart is in descending or ascending order. Now that our chart is looking good, let's insert it into a spreadsheet. To do that, click Insert in Spreadsheet. In the window that opens, we have a few decisions to make. First of all, let's rename this chart Performance by Salesperson. Next, we need to decide where to insert the chart. Here in the Spreadsheets tab, we can choose to insert it into an existing spreadsheet, or we can insert it into a blank spreadsheet. Just so you know, when Odoo data is inserted into a blank spreadsheet, the spreadsheet is saved in the My Drive folder in the Documents app. From the Dashboards tab, it's also possible to insert a chart into an existing dashboard or even to start creating a blank dashboard from scratch. For more about creating and customizing Odoo dashboards, check out our documentation and other tutorials in this e-learning course. To keep things simple, let's go back to the Spreadsheets tab and select this Sales Performance Spreadsheet and click Insert. And voila, our chart is inserted into the first sheet of our spreadsheet. Let's move it so it's below the pivot table. And by clicking on it and then expanding the graph, we can resize it to make it a bit bigger. When we insert a chart, the chart properties open on the right side of the sheet. These properties can be accessed at any time by clicking Data, then selecting the relevant data source. We can also access them by hovering over the chart, clicking the burger menu, and then Edit. There are 2 tabs, Configuration and Design. We'll talk about the Configuration tab now, and we'll discuss the Design tab later in this tutorial when we cover customizing your chart. The first heading we see is Chart Type. Earlier in this tutorial, I mentioned that more chart types are available after a chart has been inserted into a spreadsheet. If we click the drop-down, we can see the various options. Next, we see the model the chart was inserted from, and then the domain. The domain is basically the conditions that we use to filter the chart. If you remember, we filtered the original chart to show only sales order. Let's say we change our mind and now wanted to include send quotations too. We could simply click Edit Domain, and then for the status field, delete quotation sent. So the rule no longer excludes send quotations. We'll discard this from now, since we really do just want to see the sales order. At the bottom of this panel, we have Link to Odoo. Now, if we hover over the chart, we'll see a small shortcut icon. Clicking on that link opens the original source of the data, including any filters or grouping we had set. But we could also link to a different data source by clicking and selecting a different one. Or if we click Default Menu, we can link it to an Odoo menu item. But let's stick to data source for this example and select the original source of the data. Let's take a look at the other options in the burger menu. Edit opens the chart properties if they are not already open. Copy and cut lets you copy or cut the chart and paste it somewhere else within the same spreadsheet. When you do this, you maintain the connection to your database, so the data remains up to date. You can also use your regular keyboard shortcuts for this. Copy as image lets you copy a flat image of the chart. Copying the chart like this breaks the connection with the data, so the pasted version is literally just an image. Similarly, download lets you download an image file of the chart. Lastly, delete removes the chart and the chart's data source from your spreadsheet. When we insert data from any Odoo view into Odoo Spreadsheet, the data stays connected to our database. For example, if new sales orders are confirmed, if a new salesperson joins the team, or when a new quarter starts, our chart will be updated automatically. Updates happen when a spreadsheet is reopened, when the browser page is reloaded, or when the data is manually refreshed by clicking Data, Refresh All Data from the menu bar. So how does that connection work? In fact, when you insert data into a spreadsheet, what's called a data source is created. A spreadsheet can have many different data sources connected to it, as you can insert data from multiple Odoo apps and models into the same spreadsheet. Like in the original graph view, if we hover over a segment of the chart, we can see the corresponding data. For example, our salesperson Charlotte Tegas was responsible for around 27,000 worth of sales in Q1 2026. And if we click on that data, we can directly access all the underlying sales order records. We can go back to our spreadsheet by clicking the spreadsheet name in the breadcrumbs. Incidentally, the pivot table above is actually showing the same data as our chart, but in a different way and allowing different manipulations. Be sure to check out our tutorial about inserting an Odoo pivot table into an Odoo spreadsheet for more about that. Earlier, we looked at the configuration tab of the chart properties. Now, let's open the chart properties again by clicking Data and selecting the chart's data source. And this time, we'll take a look at the Design tab. It's here that we can customize various aspects of the chart, such as the background color, the chart's title, or the position of the legend. Let's make a few changes. We'll click on the color dot and choose the lightest gray. We can also make the chart's title stand out a bit more by making it bold, increasing the font size to 18, and clicking on the A to change the color to black. And maybe we could change the legend positions to the right. If we expand the data series section, we have more options. For example, if we click the first drop-down, we see each of the data series in the chart. By data series, we mean a collection of data. In this chart, all the data for Q1 2025 is a single data series, for example. We can change the color of data series by clicking on the corresponding color dots. Let's make the Q1 data dark gray. We could also edit the series name by changing Q1 to Q1. And then clicking Enter. And we can see the label is updated. If we expand the axis section, we can add titles to the horizontal axis or the vertical axis. I don't think we need one for the horizontal axis, but let's add one to the vertical axis. Total in euro. We could edit the font size, color, or alignment if we wanted to, but I think it's fine like this. That's it for this video. Now you've learned how to insert an Odoo chart into an Odoo spreadsheet and customize it to meet your needs. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.